Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Waring, and I'm the Director of Education at the Eric Carle Museum of Picture Book Art. And it really is such a joy to be able to be here presenting for STEMIEFest. Today, I'm going to be talking about the whole book approach. This is our approach to story time here at the Carle. And I'll be showing you some slides, but I'm also going to be showing you some books, getting off screen, showing you books. Before we begin, I just wanted to share that I'm here in my office. I am a white woman with light hair and a black shirt, wearing glasses, in my office surrounded by books, many of them picture books, which we'll be celebrating and talking about today. So here's the Carl. This is, we are 22 years old. We are based in Amherst, Massachusetts. If you've never been here, please come and visit. We'd love to welcome you. And our co-founder is Eric Carle, beloved author and illustrator of over 70 books. And later in his career, he was really thinking about his legacy and what he wanted to leave behind. And he had been visiting museums in Japan, and there were many museums dedicated to picture book art. And so he really wanted to see that here in the United States. He wanted to celebrate and elevate picture book art as an art form. Because when you think about it, for all of us, our first introduction to art might be within the pages of a picture book. And so we really want to celebrate that in our programs and our exhibitions, our story times. So a whole book approach story time method that I'll be talking about, it is not a prescriptive method where we say, oh, these are the 3 steps to facilitating a whole book approach story time. But as educators, as parents and caregivers, you already have a very robust toolkit on how you share picture books with children. With the whole book approach, we're just saying, here's more tools. These are more tools to add to your toolbox. If you come visit us, you'll see a just sun-filled art studio where we really celebrate process over final product. We think with our hands, we brainstorm with our hands, explore different materials. Our galleries, we're an art museum. We're not a children's museum, but I would say that we are an art museum where a lot of our guests are like 2.5 feet tall. So we really do try to layer the experiences for the varied audiences that come into our museum, whether it's a reading nook or different interactives. And then, of course, we have our library. And before the museum was even built, one of our former colleagues, Megan Dowd Lambert, was thinking about how do I take my story time out in the community, because I'm representing an art museum. So how can I be a little bit different from other story times that might take place? And that's how the whole book approach came to be. With whole book approach, it's very interactive. It's not a passive experience. It's very active. We're wanting to get children's thoughts and ideas about each page of the book. We're inspired by something called visual thinking strategies that we'll talk about in a little bit more, dialogic reading techniques, the Reggio Emilia approach to education of young children. And it's all about encouraging the discussion on the art, the design, and production elements of a picture book. Because with a picture book, we are not just reading the text, we are reading the whole book. There are visual components on the title page, the end papers, the jacket of the book. We are reading all of these images. And so how can we build and grow and nurture that visual literacy for kids? Because with the whole book approach, it really is supporting the child's intelligence of seeing. Before we are able to read and write, we are making sense of the world around us based on what we see. And we all know we are in a very visually saturated society. We can, go on our phone and look at all those icons and immediately know what those icons are. Red is stop, green is go. In school, we are teaching words and letters, how to read, but maybe not as much of how to read pictures and that visual intelligence, that visual learning. So what can we do during story time to really support that? So in our museum, when we are doing tours with children, this is a little unique picture. This is a kindergarten class that comes to us every Halloween, hence all the costumes. We look at art together and we use visual thinking strategies, which has been in museums for maybe over 30 years. And it's where we ask these really broad, open-ended questions to our kids. We start with the question, what's going on in this picture? It's phrased very specifically, not what do you see in this picture, because kids will make a really great list of what everything they see. But what's going on? So we're really trying to extract from them, what is the narrative? What do we think the story is in this picture? When there's opportunities to ask that second question, again, to pull more information from them, we'll ask it, what do you see that makes you say that? And sometimes there's just a lull. We need more time to look. What more can we find? As grown-ups, we might feel that we're not artistic or I don't know how to talk about art. The great thing about visual thinking strategies, or VTS, is that it really is all about, not about what we know about art or artists or art movements. VTS really celebrates every individual person has a unique knowledge and expertise and experiences that they bring to looking at a work of art. So, by all of us coming together and sharing that with each other, we're creating this really wonderful dialogue and conversation. And we're also building a lot of skills as well, especially for children, building oral language, building our listening skills, um, observation skills, identification, flexible thinking. Maybe as a kid, we're thinking a picture looks one way, but as we hear from other friends talk about it, maybe we change our mind. These are all skills that we're developing during this conversation we're having around a work of art. As the grown up, or as the facilitator or parent or educator asking these questions, we're doing some things too. We're paraphrasing comments, and that way, it's a form of validation. We're letting the children know that we hear them and we're following along with them. We're using conditional language like perhaps, maybe, possibly, because that allows children to know, especially if you're with not just one child but a group of children, that there could be different interpretations here. And let's listen to all of them. Pointing at parts of the picture also helps us follow along with what kids are telling us. There could be opportunities for us to share new vocabulary or sentence structure, which then kids can model back. If we're with a group of students, we can link and frame students' comments to us. And then as we wrap up looking at that picture, just thanking them for all the work that they put into this. So I'm going to dive in to a couple examples of different parts of a picture book. And again, this is just to add to your already probably over full toolbox. And I'll show some slides, but then I'll get us off the PowerPoint slides and actually show you some picture books I have next to me. When we have a picture book in our hand, before I worked at the Carl and I would read picture books with kids, I would, open the book, I would find the page that the story started, and I would start to read. That is called the book proper. The book proper is where that first sentence is. So I would do a story time. I'd flip through the couple pages and I would start my story. What whole book approach is saying is that, well, hold on a second, there's actually a lot more visual information before we get to that book proper. And that's called the paratexts. And so now more illustrators and art directors with publishing houses are putting visual information outside of where the book proper is. Of course, we have it right on the jacket, right on the front of the book. We have it underneath the jacket, what's called the case cover. When we open the book, we have pages that are glued right inside. Those are called the end papers. We see pictures there. We might see pictures on the title page. All of this is leading us into that book proper. So during a story time, it could be really fun to stop and pause at some of those areas and see how these choices are helping us better understand the story. So just to get started, book jackets. This is the book jacket for Grandfather's Journey by Alan Say. The book jacket is like the movie poster. It's the way to get our attention. It encourages us to check it out of the library or pick it off of a shelf. So what is happening on that book jacket that we're interested in and curious about? As we ask these VTS questions for Grandfather's Journey, we ask that question, what's going on or what's happening in this picture? Children have said to us, well, he's going on a trip. He's on a boat. We can ask the second question, what do you see that makes you say that he's on a boat? I always tell the kids it's like we're playing art detective. We need more art clues from you. And so they might say, well, I see water behind him, and it looks like he's on a boat because we see the railing, and we see, the water's really choppy in the background. We have a, a a tube there, like for rescue. So all these little things that they're pointing out. What more can we find? They start to ask questions. Maybe there's statements that they share with us, but maybe there's questions too. Who is this person? What time period is this? This clothing doesn't look contemporary. Um, if they can read, maybe they're trying to make a connection with that word grandfather and the picture that they see. Does this person look like a grandfather? Does that jacket look like it fits him? So all these questions start to arise. We might get some of those questions answered as we get into the book proper. But to start to ask those questions right on the jacket is really interesting. It kind of gets us started for the work that we're about to do together as both grown up and child. Now, also, more and more illustrators and art directors are having so much fun hiding more pictures underneath the jacket on the case cover. Sometimes the illustration completely matches what we see on the jacket. In other cases, it's completely different. So that allows for us during a story time to kind of have a fun moment of surprise. When do we want to reveal the surprise? Maybe we want to do it right at the beginning of our story time, or maybe we want to conclude with it. But definitely peek under the jacket of your picture books. I guarantee you'll find some surprises that you didn't even know were there. So again, with this cover, this jacket, asking those questions, paraphrasing those responses, pointing, creating space where everyone feels comfortable and confident to share their thoughts and ideas. This is something too, shape and design. Why are books shaped a certain way? If we think about this classic book, The Polar Express, why isn't a portrait size shape? Why isn't it up and down? Why is it so successful as a horizontal shaped book? Well, we have a story about a train. That train is long and it's going on a journey. So we need that horizontal space for that train to travel. If it were a portrait shaped book, it wouldn't have the space. It would felt really tight. So just those decisions that are being made, it's really fun to talk about that with kids. End papers. End papers are the papers that are glued in the front and the back of the book. And sometimes these end papers might just be a solid color, and other times you feel like there's a whole narrative happening in the end papers. You've got the front end papers and the back end papers. Sometimes they're the same, and sometimes those back end papers are different. Again, a really fun space to explore and talk about why those pictures are there. If the jacket of the book is like a movie poster, we say the end papers are like this visual overture. They're leading us into the story. Let's spend some time looking at it a little bit more. And I'm sure you've probably already identified the end papers here. These are the end papers for Brown Bear, Brown Bear, What Do You See? Which was written by Bill Martin Jr. and illustrated by Eric Carle, his very first job as an illustrator in 1967. He did this book and he thought, wow, I could have so much joy doing this as a job, and ended up doing it for over 50 years. And then there's front matter. Front matter are those first few pages that I used to just completely skip. We say the front matter matters. The front matter has key visual information in some pictures, in some picture books. This is a great example. Hush Little Baby, the folk song, this is a book by Marla Frazee. She has put a lot of information in the front matter, and it's kind of key for us to look at these pictures, because if we went right to that first page of the story, we'd be missing out on a lot. So let me show you. We've got our jacket, a great image to ask those open-ended questions. What's going on in this picture? What do you see that makes you say that? What more can we find? Then Marla just gives us a solo image, no text. But we can dive into this picture and talk about time period, time of day, season. What's going on? Is the family leaving? Are they going somewhere? Are those their belongings in the cart? What is this? So Marla's sort of setting the stage for this book that we're about to read. Then she gives us the title page. This is a unique title page. It is on both the left and right hand pages, so it is called a double spread image. She's given us a lot of surface area. And now we're kind of getting a sense of the family dynamics of how this young girl feels maybe about this baby in her life. So we could totally have fun with this picture using those VTS questions. And then we get to the dedication page and we see locked arms, furrowed brow, very kind of intent focus on our girl, kind of shoving that little cradle. That all of that front matter, all of those pages, those 3 pages, lead us in to the book, Hush Little Baby, Don't Say a Word, Papa's Gonna Buy You a Mockingbird. So we know what caused the baby to cry in the first place by looking at the front matter. I'm going to go back to this page really quick because there's another part of a book called the gutter. The gutter is the seam where the left and the right hand page meet, and it is so super tricky. If illustrators put things right in the gutter, it might look a little strange, especially if it's a brand new book. The spine hasn't really cracked. Things can get lost in the gutter. But look at how Marla Frazee used the gutter to her advantage to kind of show the tension between our girl and the rest of the family. The girl's on the left page, the rest of the family is on the right. So illustrators have started to use the gutter in really interesting ways. This is actually a video that you can find on YouTube for a book called Yo Yes by Krish Rashka, where 2 boys form a friendship and they get to know each other. They start on either sides of the gutter. We don't have time to watch this, but it will be in STEMIEFest's media cubby for the Eric Carle Museum, and we'll have some other resources there for you as well. So definitely take a look at it. It's a super cute book. And then overall typography and design. There's some different choices being made by artists. Eric Carle, for example, loved collage. That was his preferred medium, and we see that throughout his books. He also said that books were toys that you can read, books that you can play with. So the Very Hungry Caterpillar has holes, and different pages are different sizes. Those are all different design choices. Where the Wild Things Are, it turned 60 years old last year. If you revisit that book, the pictures actually start really small with a really big frame and margin around them. But throughout the story, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's really fun to take a look at those. Font, a book like Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, where the pigeon talks very loudly. You've got big, bold, large letters. So all those things combined, if we take some time to look at those elements during a story time, can really support a child's intelligence of seeing. As you familiarize yourself with the whole book approach, take some time, be familiar with the book, maybe share it with other colleagues, educators, caregivers. Don't forget to ask those open-ended questions. You really get such wonderful responses from kids. Especially if you're doing a story time with a group. You might have children that are always going to share their thoughts and ideas and are really excited to share with you. But you might also have children that prefer to not speak up. But that doesn't mean they're not engaging with you. Check out their facial expressions. Check out, what are they telling you nonverbally? Maybe they're, crossing their arms like the girl in Marla Frazee's book, Hush Little Baby, or kind of shrugging their shoulders like the Very Hungry Caterpillar. They're still connecting with you in some way. And just have fun. What I love about whole book approach, I can read the same book to either the same group or different groups, and I'm always going to get different responses. So as much as you are sharing the book with the kids, I consider myself one of the co-learners with them because we are all learning and listening to each other and just learning so much from one another. In terms of techniques, just kind of slow down, ask those open-ended questions, paraphrase, point, create that space where everyone feels welcome to speak, introducing new terms like gutter and end paper, and they start to model that too. I've included my email here if you have any questions, but of course, during the live Q&A, I'd love to answer any questions you have as well. And there's also a lot of books available to learn more about the whole book approach. Now, I promised that I would also show you some books, and we do have a couple of minutes for that. So we were talking about shape before. A portrait-sized book. We looked at that horizontal book of the Polar Express. Here's a great example of a portrait book. When's My Birthday by Julie Foliano, illustrated by Christian Robinson. The verticality of that book really highlights our child's birthday hat. If we turn the book to the back, we have all these great little confetti pieces up in the air with these little hands. A square book. If we've got a book called Square Cat, and I'm sorry my video is not mirrored. If the book is about a square cat, we have to have a square-shaped book. And even for our younger children, think about your board books, those shaped board books, and how this race car will encourage those children to kind of run it along the floor and using their imagination. We talked about pictures on the jacket. This is a really sweet book called The Watermelon Seed by Greg Pizzoli. And we have a crocodile eating a watermelon. But Greg Pizzoli, in all of his books, he has so much fun with the images underneath the jacket. And here we have what looks to be the outside of a watermelon. And if we open his book to the end papers, we have the inside of a watermelon. So it feels like we're holding a watermelon during our story time. Beautiful Blackbird by Ashley Bryan. Just like Eric Carle, he used beautiful collages in his works. So in his end papers for Beautiful Blackbird, we see all these collage birds, and he's collaged his scissors that he used to make his collages. So he's still giving us a little bit more information about himself. Gutter. Yo, yes, we talked about that video. Here's the book. I'll just quickly show you. When we meet our two kids, look at how far away they are on either side of the book. But as they get talking and get to know each other more and more, they start to slowly inch closer and closer to each other until finally at the end, they're still not sure. Are they going to become friends? Our shy boy hops across the gutter to meet up with his new friend to go play. Typography and design. When Sophie gets angry, really, really angry, we learn about a girl who's trying to regulate her feelings. When she's upset, you can see how upset she gets. And so Molly Bang, who illustrated this book and wrote it, did interesting things with the words. When Sophie gets upset and wants to smash things to smithereens, we have the word smash all in little pieces. When she roars, it comes out as fire. And then, of course, The Very Hungry Caterpillar came out in 1967. And one of the things he wanted to do was have all these different pages, all these different sizes with little holes so we can imagine the caterpillar eating through all those foods. There's so much to do with the whole book approach and so much to explore. And I think it would allow both you and children to be surprised and kind of have these moments of discovery together. So I hope you enjoy, and I look forward to talking to you more during the live Q&A. Thank you.